Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken?
Hey, Kieran.
Gosh, I wish I knew enough to say this seat taken in Greek.
In ancient Greek.
In ancient Greek, yeah. I guess I could write it. Well, of course I can. I mean, I'm conversant in it and I read it. But speaking it, I just don't want to embarrass myself. We don't really know how it was pronounced.
Yeah. Well, I heard like a really cool. I heard this really interesting audio clip that I'll link to in the show notes of these academics who put together what the music and language might have sounded like when people performed these Odyssey poems, and it was pretty freaky.
I mean, this is Ryan. I'm quickly feeling that. Remember how you used to give me a hard time about all the Boston centric episodes I was doing?
Yeah.
I feel like this is, I know you're responding to the people. The last Odyssey episode, which is in the queue, people can go listen to, which was about traveling to the places in the Greek Isles where a lot of in the Mediterranean civilizations where the Odyssey takes place. That was a hit for us, I would say. And so we are doubling down. We are on the Odyssey wave here.
Yeah, I think the Odyssey, it's still a big thing. And thanks to everybody who downloaded the last episode. It was a big hit for us. And I think, when I was doing research about sort of how I wanted to talk about the Odyssey on the show, I came upon all these, upstate New York. Like I knew about Ithaca and I knew about Troy, but I really didn't know that there were so many sort of, there's even a town named Homer we're going to talk about. So it's just like I wondered why are there all these classical names? So today we're going to talk a bit about sort of like from a travel perspective, the various places in upstate New York and what's connected to the Odyssey, but also we're going to be speaking with a New York historian, Daniel Koch, about sort of how these places got all these names. So it's going to be a good episode, a mix of travel and history.
It's what we're always looking for. It's what we feed on.
Yeah, exactly.
And Ryan, before we get to the discussion of Greek names and how they came to the United States, I do want to do the due diligence of the Judy alert, where we let your mom Judy. We all know you don't keep in close touch like a loyal, caring son. Sometimes you just drop in at random, never on a major holiday. And Judy, she worries. She wants to know, where is Ryan in the world? So here's the Judy alert. Ryan, where are you right now?
I am in Bogota in my apartment.
All right. I mean, that seems to be you've really stayed local lately.
Well, my visa is processing and things are a little slow right now because of the election turnover. The new administration's coming in.
I say
tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I've been staying put, but I've been actively planning this trip to Brazil, which is basically a week away. We fly next Friday. So when this episode comes out, lots of folks will be listening to it while I am on my way to Brazil. I'm super excited. It's a new country, and my boyfriend's been practicing his Portuguese. I haven't spent any time doing that because it's hopeless. Yeah, I'm super excited to see Rio and Sao Paulo. And if folks have recommendations, they can pop them over to us, outofofficepod@gmail.com. But these are big cities, Kieran, like really big cities.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're going to take your time in them. And I feel like this trip is going to be sweetened by your experience when you tried to go to Brazil previously without a visa, mistakenly. And I feel like it's going to feel like a big accomplishment to just cross that border.
Yeah, well, they haven't let me in yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I do have my visa.
Actually, I have a few emails to write recommending against your entrance. How long is the total stay?
It's 2 weeks, so we'll be there.
Glorious.
From the 14th to the 31st, and about 7 days in each city. And yeah, we have jam packed. I was telling you over text. I mean, we have jam packed travel days, and there's a lot to see. So there's going to be some, excited to get those episodes out the door. I think being a travel podcast co-host makes me a better tourist, because I just feel like I have to be more kind of like regulated about what I see. Those expectations that you have of me, Kieran.
Understandable. I agree. Also, it makes you be a very it's like being an active listener. You're like an active traveler, because we're always trying to search out what the next episode could be.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have.
Speaking of which, we had a couple people write in, and they pointed out I never did a full London follow up episode when I went there with my mother, and there's a lot to be said about traveling with your parents and with older tourists with you. And I do think there is a follow up episode there, and we've just hit the year mark of it. We actually left a year ago today, so it's time for me to find a place in the queue for that.
Yeah, that would be great. People love.
I did traveling with kids. Now I'll do traveling with elders.
Oh, well, that is something Mom and I have been talking about, is taking another trip. So
you know what?
I'll learn
we can talk about that in the last stop, because it's related to what I have to say.
Yeah. Well, I think I think it's time for us to, not be like Odysseus and dawdle around for 10 years here in the top of the show. Let's jump in to talking about upstate New York's Odyssey.
Are you saying it's time to take off?
It's time to take off.
All right, tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Kieran, and tell me about your sort of upstate New York. Have you been to any of these sort of Odyssey named cities?
No, honestly, I have. I've spent time in the Adirondacks area, and I'm sure I've driven past a lot of these towns, but I have not spent time directly in one of these classically named American towns.
Well, today we're recommending basically a day trip that can begin in Troy, New York. And of course, Troy is named after the famous city of Troy from the Odyssey poem. What's sort of interesting, Kieran, is that none of these towns saw this Odyssey wave coming, and so none of them really prepared. You think that Troy. Yeah, think that Troy, New York would have, like, at the bare minimum, a big sculpture of a horse, right? Like,
sure, of course.
I mean, they've had years to prepare for this, but they don't. They don't really have anything sort of officially related to the Odyssey. It's a cute upstate New York town. It's got also that classic architecture. There's a building named the Ilium Building, which I just learned is actually sort of the original name for Troy. So that's sort of a callback to Troy itself. And it's a beautiful old building. But they don't have, they don't actually have that huge wooden horse that I think the citizens should really make happen.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like a very obvious. I remember I was recently reading about there's a town in England where there's like local legend that some part of the Mayflower was built there, but it's like not true. I mean, the historians are just like firm. This is not the place where the Mayflower was actually made, but there's a local resident who has just made it his passion point. The way that they are going to get on the tourist map is they are going to claim the Mayflower and the Pilgrims as theirs. And nobody else in the town is interested in it. He's tried 100 different ways. He's had Mayflower days, and I feel like there is a citizen of Troy, New York, who needs to stand up and just relentlessly go at the community until that wooden horse gets made.
Yeah, I think Rome wasn't built in a day, but Troy can definitely get pretty quickly a big wooden horse built.
I feel like it should be in a playground. You should have a playground, a wooden horse that the kids can crawl up into and hide, and then they get to play that they're Greeks, and they come out and they fight. And there's a ton that you could do with this. Even, right, I don't know if you know this, my high school mascot were the Trojans. So I know this game well.
I know this because you told me on the last episode.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. All right. So loyal listeners.
Yeah. So the Troy, New York, lovely little town. And while you're there, check out the farmers market, and just enjoy that. I'm a big upstate, relaxed New York antiquer, so there's definitely quite a bit of that to do in Troy. Now, on your Odyssey to Ithaca, you can stop at the town of Homer. Now, Homer is a pretty small town, but it is actually named after the poet. It says so right on the About page of the Homer, New York website, which hasn't been updated in a while, guys. Get on that. But, again, they don't have a statue to Homer, which seems the obvious thing to do. Would be to have this Homer, but it does have a lovely village green and a Instagram worthy sign that says you're in Homer, New York.
So I just to ask an obvious question, you're talking a lot about how these classically named places do not have classical statues, and I mean even Nashville has a Parthenon, So. Yeah. Is when people visit, are you saying just go and enjoy the town for what it is, or should tourists be actively going into the town hall and saying, hey, I'm here to see everything classical in town, and try to show their interest in seeing some of these attractions?
There is, I mean, they could definitely do that, but there isn't a lot to see specifically related to, the Odyssey. I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. If I had a lovely village green like they do there in Homer, New York, I feel like a nice bust of Homer, which we've all seen. There are plenty of them you could commission. Would be a heck of a little tourist photo stop.
Okay, I see. So I feel like then what we're doing in this episode is we're building the case, which means when you visit these towns, you need to send them a link to this podcast, because we're showing them that what they are missing as far as tourism goes. And also, I think in the interview, you're going to really hear what inspired their forebears to give these places these names.
Yeah, their forebears, I think, were a little more classicist, they were more of they were more interested in these tales. But I would imagine that in a lot of these towns there are emergency city council meetings happening, being like, hey, everybody knows about the Odyssey now, maybe we should cash in. But yeah, that is something we'll get into with Daniel. But Ithaca itself, this is, again, a 2-hour drive between Troy and Ithaca, with that little stop at Homer in between. Now, Ithaca does have more things related to the ancient world.
It's got to be, because this is home to Cornell.
Yeah. So the first thing you should do is there is an Odyssey bookstore named after the Odyssey. I am sure
we're talking.
Yeah, I'm sure they are leaning in because, the Odyssey is one of the best selling books right now. I think there are 3 translations in the top Amazon.
Yeah, 100. All these people pretending they're going to read it.
Yeah.
Then they're just going to listen to podcasts like this. Just give me the summary.
Yeah. Emily Wilson is out there, doing her thing.
Oh, tearing it apart.
Yeah, she's killing it. So stop by the Odyssey bookstore. If you haven't picked up a performative copy of the Odyssey to put on your bookshelf, that would be.
and this is a man who understands performative copies of books, ladies and gentlemen.
But Ithaca itself is, again, explicitly named for the island home of Odysseus. So it is the town was aware of what they were doing, and so they have leaned into it a little bit more. And then Cornell's there. I've been to the Cornell campus a couple times back when I had my VC job. It's a beautiful campus. Have you ever been up there?
I haven't. I know there's a big joke about the gorge. There's a lot of shirts that come out of Cornell that says Ithaca is gorgeous.
Ithaca is gorgeous, and it is gorgeous. And there is a gorge, but there's also a museum on the Cornell campus called Clarman Hall, and they have a pretty decent collection of materials from the ancient world, and a lot of plaster cast. And I think when you're kind of wandering the halls of Cornell, you'll probably see some of the figures from Greek mythology that you'll encounter in the Odyssey.
Excellent. Yeah. And do you know, is that a freebie? Free to enter?
I don't know that mostly those are free to enter, right? On campuses. It's a good question.
I know Harvard has opened up the free admission to all the arts, just not the Natural History Museum, which is very strange.
Well, I'm a big supporter of free museums, so I hope that it is free. But if it's not, I don't think it's gonna break the bank. Considering what poor Odysseus went through to get to Ithaca, I think you can drop your $5 to support.
He was fine. Athena was taking care of him. It was fine. I feel like it's kind of oversold how hard. Yeah, it was frustrating, but like along the way, he had some pretty good times.
Yeah, less good times in the movie than in the.
I know they took out a lot of the good times.
Yeah. Now, Ithaca took my note, and they do have a huge sculpture of Hercules. That is 11-foot Hercules made from chrome-plated car bumpers. So that is a very interesting take, but definitely something people should check out if they are on campus and check.
And if you want to sound really sophisticated when you're checking this out, make sure you say Heracles, because that's the Greek pronunciation. Heracles. Hercules, that's the Roman bastardization of it.
I just spent time in Spain, and I was in some city that was founded by Hercules. What was that? Was it Seville? I don't know. One of those cities.
Founded by Hercules. Wow. Now that there, I can hear a future episode coming. International cities founded by Hercules.
And the city that I was in was Seville, and I remember there was a local gym chain named Hercules, which I thought was super clever.
That's a great name. Yeah,
it's a great name. Yeah, definitely. So if you have time, there is also a small town called Ulysses in upstate New York. But those are sort of the four towns that have very specific Odyssey names. Obviously, we're going to jump into this interview with Daniel and talk about how they got these names, and there's some fun stories. So I think we should jump. I think we should cut to the Daniel interview, Kieran.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
Welcome, Daniel, to Out of Office. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
So before all these towns were named after these classical names, Troy, Homer, Ithaca, can you talk a little bit about what the region in upstate New York was?
Yeah, so it was the homeland of the Haudenosaunee. It was mainly wooded, and the vast forests, the lakes, the mountains, the rivers. They were used by the Haudenosaunee people. They were very sparsely populated, compared to what they are now. So the Euro-American settlers from the coastal regions thought of it pretty much as wilderness inhabited by native people.
And the Revolutionary War happens, and I actually learned this from your article, which is in the show notes. But there was this thing called the military tract, where the Army gave land to veterans. Can you talk a little bit about that and why it was created and how it was divided?
Sure. So the revolutionaries had eyes on the land in the sort of western part of what's now New York State, and all the land west of the Appalachian Mountains really had been off limits before that due to the King's Proclamation in 1763. So when the revolution happened, they started to think, oh, well, this land's going to become up for the grabs, up for us to take. We'll have to extinguish the native titles to it, but they had ways of doing that. They had their methods and treaties and so on. Anyway, so they thought, okay, we can get hold of this land. We need to pay our soldiers, our Revolutionary War soldiers, and they were very short of money. So they said, well, we'll promise you land out to the west of what's inhabited currently, and that will be your payment for your service in the War for Independence. So at the end of the war, they made some treaties with the Onondaga and the Cayuga people and various other Native American peoples in the Mohawk Valley and to the west. And then they divided up the land. They literally just drew lines on the map, divided it up into plots, and assigned it to various veterans. Land speculators got a lot of it as well, and that's how it happened.
So this is happening after the Revolutionary War. You've got these former soldiers and officials moving up north. How did they start to decide on these classical names?
So this is interesting because there wasn't really a huge precedent for this in the East Coast. Most towns and growing cities at that time were predominantly named after cities in England where the settlers had come from, or from the Netherlands in the case of the Hudson Valley. So they fought this Revolutionary War. They are about to settle lots of new places. They need names for all the places that they're settling. Naming them after English towns and cities after the War of Revolution wasn't really in fashion. And they thought, oh, well, these classical names, we can use a lot of these. A lot of the founding fathers were very into classical history, Roman and Greek places and people. And so they started using those.
So there was a professor named Robert Harper who was at King's College, which is now Columbia, which is where Hamilton famously went. What was his connection to all this, and how did his ideas influence it?
Well, he was one of the people who was kind of looking at this map. As I said, when they were drawing the lines on the map of this new military tract, as they called it, they started coming up with names, and he was one of the people around the table at the time. And so he was said to be the person who kind of came up with the names of the places and kind of just plopped them onto the map because they didn't really know in great detail what was there.
Yeah, and these were sort of aspirational cities, I guess, at that point in some way. Yeah. So one of the things in your article that's interesting is how some of the cities decided what they were going to be called. Can you give us a little detail on some of the more interesting stories?
Yeah, so there was the sort of the drawing of the map, but most of the place names, the classical place names, were actually just kind of decided upon by the settlers themselves. So in Troy, New York, for example, it had previously been a very small Dutch settlement. As all these new settlers from New England came pouring into the area, they didn't really want to keep the Dutch name, found it a little bit too hard to pronounce, and so decided to call it Troy, which has the classical kind of background, but also they just found it a nicer name than what the Dutch name had been. Utica is another example. So basically, you had a group of settlers around what used to be called Old Fort Schuyler on the Mohawk River, and they just put names into a hat and then drew the name Utica out of the hat. It just happened to be the one that got picked.
I love that as a way to name your town. Just draw it out of a hat. I come from Salisbury, Maryland, which is named after Salisbury, England, and of course we're by Baltimore, named after Lord Baltimore. So I really enjoyed these stories where folks were able to break out of the just naming after the UK town that their family was from. Um, when you're thinking about the pioneers actually making these choices, were they because they were fans of Homer? They were classicalists. Like, what kind of drove them to kind of go in this direction?
Well, they were educated. Most of the pioneers that came into what's now New York State came from New England, which was a very literate and educated society. So, they had learned about the classics or at least had some knowledge of that alongside biblical learning that they would have all had. So they were living a pretty rough and ready life out on the frontier, but they did have that kind of knowledge about the classical past, and they brought that to bear in the names that they chose.
No, that's really interesting, and it's so interesting to see how concentrated these names are in New York and Ohio specifically. What is there a connection there?
Yeah. So as the pioneers came through, they settled New York first, and then once that was settled, they kept moving west. So the trend they they started it in New York, and they carried it with them as they moved westward into Ohio and Michigan and further west until they reached the Pacific, and all the way across America. You find classical place names, but it really started right in upstate New York.
Well, there you go. Daniel, you've written a whole book on New York State history. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about that if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so my book's called Land of the Oneidas, and it's about the Oneida people, one of the Haudenosaunee nations. It's about their homeland and how it changed. So, the area in what's now central New York State. And that's how I got interested in the origins of all this stuff. It's where I grew up. I've lived most of my life now in the UK, but I still consider central New York State to be my home.
Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us on Out of Office. This has been super interesting, and if folks want to learn more, there'll be links in the show notes.
Thank you very much.
And now it's time for the last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan. Well, great interview. Thank you very much to Daniel. Boy, a lot of cool history that I did not know in there. The giving tracts of land for service within the Revolution was a really interesting fact. You could see why that warrior mindset was still in their minds.
Yeah, exactly. They were thinking about their time served and how to expand America's names beyond sort of the callbacks to the European cities. So I guess with other European cities.
I'll tell you, I went down this just the interview inspired me to go down kind of a rabbit hole about other places bearing Greek names, and Penelope, Texas has caught my eye. But there's a great list online that I'll share of particularly southern cities named. I don't think we'll do a follow-up episode, but it's a fun browse.
Yeah, and it's interesting, this all we talk about how this all begins in New York State, and then as the colonies, move west, places like Ohio get a ton of these classic names. So the founding generation were definitely as obsessed with the Odyssey and these and the Greeks as everybody is in the world right now. So super cool to hear.
Oh, Ryan, you are aware. My youngest daughter, my one daughter, is named Penelope for the Odyssey.
I didn't even put that together.
I married a classicist. This is what's going to happen. I probably was the major. I love the name Penelope, so I was kind of the driver of that. But yeah, when we wanted to name her, Catherine said, I'm on board with that name. The only caveat is that you have to read the whole Odyssey before we name her Penelope. So I did.
And are you teaching her to weave, and then every night you unweave her?
Oh my God. I mean, she's 4 years old. The suitors really just need to stay away. Yeah. We have her build Legos and then take them apart each day, rebuild them. Just a modern version. Well, wow. All right. Well, thank you very much. Great interview. We are here in the last stop. This is the final segment of the show. That's why it's called The Last Stop. It's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the People's segment. And that is because it's a time for us to come together as a community and share, particularly you, Ryan, and I, Kieran, share one thing each week in this segment. Now, it could be anything. It could be a story, could be a factoid, could be an article, could be a piece of advice. Actually, this week, I'm bringing a piece of advice. That's kind of a rare last stop for us. But no matter what it is, it has to check one box. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workaday week. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you, as I ask you every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kieran. I have been watching True Detective season 4. Are you a True Detective fan at all?
No, I've never dabbled.
Well, it's in its 4th season, and each season is its own sort of compact story of a murder mystery in a kind of rural Americana setting. The first one famously in Louisiana with Woody Harrelson. And this season stars the great, iconic, I would even say, Jodie Foster, who knows how to hunt down a murderer or two. And it all takes place in this extremely remote fictional town in Alaska called Ennis. But Ennis is one of these communities that is incredibly close to the Arctic Circle. So it experiences almost like 2 months of complete darkness.
Wow. That sounds like heaven. I love darkness. I mean, even when I lived in London, London has like way darker winters than even a lot of places in New England. Like, it starts getting dark at like 3 p.m. It affects other people. I revel in it. I love night.
I love night too. I think my experience with this is more like the opposite in Denmark, when it was like always like the super light times before the super dark times. Yeah, it is like an interesting. It's just interesting to imagine there being no day for like a good chunk of the year. But also the show, I think, it's really interesting in how it kind of shows how unique Alaska is. You know, there's a big indigenous population, there's a Latino population, there's the miners who have come to kind of work these isolated remote places, and it just really interesting culture. And the show is really beautiful. It is not shot in Alaska. They shot it in Iceland, which you've been to. So maybe you've been to both Alaska and Iceland. I haven't been to either. Are there visual similarities? Do you think that you would fall for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just making me. It's just been making me think about how beautiful and interesting Alaska is. It's one of the 8 states that I haven't been to. And
I've been twice.
I know.
This is shocking. I mean, for some, you're just like so well traveled, but you need a long time. You need a long time to get there. You need a long time to move in there. And it's definitely not like a week-long place. You want to settle.
Yeah, they've been talking about this voting act. They've been talking about how remote some of these cities are, and if somebody wanted to register to vote, they would have to basically get on a plane for 2 hours to be able to find a town hall to register in. I mean, it's just really interesting to think about that. Alaska is just crazy different than a lot of the.
If you're super interested in like the what it is like to live in Alaska and the type of person that is attracted to it and develops there, because there is, as you say, so much is remote and you have to be dependent on so much on yourself and on your ingenuity, and you have to plan. I mean, like sometimes, going to a grocery store could require a day if you're in a remote place. or longer, of course. It really feels like a different country because of the culture that develops within Alaska. And there's a spectacular historic book written by John McPhee, who's a famous journalist and a New Yorker writer. He's getting on in years, and this is an older book, but it's called Coming into the Country. And Coming into the Country is a deep dive, tons of profiles of people he met in Alaska, and it is tremendous. I think it exactly captures what it is like there.
Oh, that's a fantastic recommendation. We'll drop a link in the show notes. Well, Kieran, did you happen to bring a last stop this week?
I did. This is it's a little bit advice. It's mostly now that we are properly into August and fall is right around the corner. I think that in the rush of your summer travels, you can sometimes forget to start planning your next set of travels. And this is a very good time to start thinking about where you want to hit next summer, say even late spring, early fall, but like think about 2027 now. And the reason that I'm putting this on people's radar is because if you're looking to go to one of these places, we've covered over tourism a lot on the show. And if something like visiting Yellowstone or Yosemite or trying to get into one of the most sought after shows in New York or London is on your plate, many times they are opening up those reservations a year in advance. And I'm always amazed that there are families out there who are already thinking about, okay, what's the big family trip going to be 2027, especially when you're coordinating a large family, as I've done before with my siblings and mom. And so now is the time to decide, are we going to do something that, doesn't require a year's trips, or do we want to stay in the Old Faithful Inn in one of these great historic buildings, in which case you have to get on that planning right now?
Gosh, that is, I'm glad that I'm not in that travel world. That sounds very complicated.
Well, the reason that it's on my mind is because Catherine and I have started to think about bigger trips for next year, more ambitious trips with the family. Because now the kids are getting old enough that we could take longer flights. I've never been to Hawaii. A lot of great national parks out in Hawaii. I think that we have people on the West Coast we could visit en route, but it's going to just take a lot of logistics. And there's some great national park spaces out there that you do need to reserve far in advance. And I was talking to my mom, as I said earlier in the episode, we went to London last year, and I said, would you be interested? She has relived that trip so many times. Every time we're together, we're reminiscing about how great that trip was. And I said, what if we go a little further afield? And I was thinking maybe something on the continent, but interestingly, I think is most interested in a road trip around Ireland and kind of tracing the ancestry and all that stuff. And the logistics of that, it doesn't take a full year, but it's something I'd like to start planning out now, probably to avoid the busy summer season.
Yeah, that's the trip. One of the trips I did with my mom. We went to Dublin and went down to Kerry, where the family's from. And we even somehow stayed a night at some great aunt's house, some person who's.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I don't think you've done an episode. I've only been to Dublin. I flew in, spent a long weekend in Dublin, flew out. So I don't have a great sense. What I would like to do is here on these Boston streets, start practicing driving on the opposite side of the road.
Yeah, we didn't drive. We took the train.
I think I'm very tempted to drive it. I have to say, I've never done the other side of the road drive.
I have cousins who have done the drive. But yeah, we went to the homestead and everything. So yeah, as you got to do that research and figure out, there's always some local towny historian who can help you find where your great grandparents lived.
It's actually something that AI has made very accessible.
Oh, I bet. Have you seen that SNL where the guy walks into the Irish pub in Ireland?
Yeah.
He says, I'm from Ireland.
And the whole place goes, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So
Well, welcome home. We're so
Yeah.
excited you're here. You got to link to it in the show notes now.
Definitely. And while you were while we'll drop in sort of book recs, you were talking about Hawaii. I just finished a novel by Adam Ross called Mr. Peanut, where the husband and wife, they go on a trip to Hawaii, and they take this sort of famous hike, this trek in one of the national parks that's very dangerous, and I won't give away how they do at the hike. But would you try one of those like serious hikes that are like, you know, multiple days?
It depends how serious it is. Again, I mean, I'm going to have a 5-year-old, so it's not going to be. So I don't think we could do one of those most extreme. But again, this is one of the great things about visiting national parks is usually there's kind of an easier route for families, and then there's bigger adventures. Boy, a lot of deaths in national parks lately. I don't know if you've noticed that, but a lot of wildlife interactions and people falling off cliffs. It's been really something.
That guy who got
impaled on his
well, he was fine. He was fine.
He did great. I would have done the same thing. I'm so cheap. I would have hiked 10 miles to not have to get airlifted out. You know how expensive a helicopter is?
Yeah. Oh, I was talking about the guy who got charged by the bull.
The like grandfatherly figure, who said it didn't actually hurt to get thrown up. It was landing that hurt.
Yeah. By the way, the video, I'll find it and put it in the show notes because
it's amazing.
He gets some air. I mean,
it's crazy. People do not realize how violent these animals can be.
And that guy with the bear spray and the oof.
It's getting serious out there. Mr. Peanut, is Planters tied into this novel at all? I'm kind of surprised they could name a novel that.
No, it's about her peanut allergy.
Oh, okay. Boy, that sounds like the opposite of what Planters would want to be associated with.
Yeah. It's like Kool-Aid being associated with Jonestown. It's not their favorite. It's a novel.
You know, the other day, so as a parent, you're always like struggling for what can I put in my kids' lunch that they'll actually eat. I finally converted my kids to eating chickpeas. They like chickpeas. They're simple. You know, you make them, you put them right in raw. It's fine. They're tasty. They're filling. Kid in my son's class has a chickpea allergy. I've never heard of a chickpea allergy.
Oof, they would be missing out on some good food.
Chickpeas, peanuts. It's just going to be send Twizzlers. So you can only send Twizzlers. All right, Ryan.
Kieran, this was fun. Thanks for coming on this New York Odyssey with me. And until next time, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken. Ryan, I have a question. Is there a character in the Odyssey that you feel like, you know, if you were in the Odyssey, you would be this character?
Robert Patterson.
Oh, okay. All right. I think you're answering a slightly different question there.